Thank you. Please sit down. Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's member forum. Before we go any further, just to explain why I'm sitting here, slightly unexpectedly, the Lord Mayor is currently unwell. He is currently in hospital, having had 2 procedures, but he's recovering. And I'm sure all members will join me in sending him our very best wishes for a speedy recovery and look forward to seeing him back in his chair very soon. Unfortunately, the Deputy Lord Mayor is also unavailable, and so as the most recent former Lord Mayor in the building, I'm here for one meeting only. A normal service will be resumed in September. So, we'll start as ever with safety information. We're not expecting any drills today, so should there be an alarm, we'll exit the building through the nearest exit, likely to be the front door, and assemble on College Green by the Cathedral. As usual, details of all the questions submitted to Member Forum and all of the replies have been published. Questions have been submitted by groups in priority order, and we will take them in that order. Each councillor has a maximum of 2 questions. If you ask 1 question, you get 1 follow-up, and if you ask 2 questions, you get 2 follow-ups. And I think everyone is aware by now, but as per normal procedure, you don't need to ask your question. The questions have all been published already, so when you're called, we'll go straight into the follow-ups. And we will start with Green Question 1, Councillor Parsons, on rent controls. You've asked 2 questions, Councillor, so 2 follow-ups, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Mayor Rees, for your replies. Greens have always been clear in our renters' rights policies, which is why we co-authored a motion with your party supporting the Living Rent Commission. In your reply, you said that the solution is building houses, but building market rate homes alone won't reduce sky-high rents or our council house waiting lists. So do you accept that building market rate houses alone won't solve the housing crisis and that we do need to expand social housing and control rents?
I mean, I'm struggling to follow the sequence of your question. That's what we've been doing. We've been building council houses and social housing. So it's not a case of accepting or not. It's a case of what we're doing. But as I shared with you in the opening question, I think it would be worth your party having an away day and have a think about what your position actually is on housing. First off, I was absolutely dismayed. There was a member of your party that led the disruption of the Living Rent Commission, took protesters past the security on the front desk, had a junior member of our staff, I didn't say they engineered it, but they created conditions in which it happened. A member of our staff in her early 20s photographed in that meeting with her image put on social media by that disruptive action, and it was a member of your party took people in. That was utterly irresponsible and not a fair treatment of a young, newly graduated member of the City Office staff. I think what we also need from you, particularly as we go into the local elections next year, is clarity on what your position actually is on housing. We do need to look at the existing rental market. We do need to build social housing, but housing supply is part of the challenge for us. And I just did a very basic search here of where you've opposed housing. Bristol Zoo Gardens. You've been missing in action on Western Harbour, where we can have 2,000 homes. You've opposed Baltic Wharf. You've opposed Overcourt, opposed Ashton Vale, opposed Broadwalk, opposed Mees Street. These are brownfield sites. And building on brownfield sites, as I heard your co-leader of your party say, they back brownfield sites. And yet every occasion in Bristol when brownfield sites have come forward, you've either failed to support them or you've opposed them. You need to have an away day and work out, do you actually have a policy on housing? What is it? And how are you going to reconcile your professed commitment to solving the housing crisis with the actual need to build homes that you're singularly failing to support?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Rees. I was under the impression that this forum was an opportunity for members to ask questions of the administration and what the administration is doing, but never mind. I'll continue with my second question. Margaret Thatcher's right to buy policy has led to the loss of about 2 million council homes, and former cabinet member Paul Smith said it was incredibly damaging to Bristol. I certainly agree with Paul, but I was concerned to hear Labour's Shadow Housing Secretary recently say that Labour will continue right to buy. Who's right?
So your point about what we do in this space is one that we urgently need to move on from. I think there's a kind of a real soft position that you've been able to take where you tweet one value, you do not back it up, and then no one questions you. Now we are moving into a system that you've advocated for with the committee system where you will be in a position of influence. It is important that, as an opposition councillor, your ideas and your arguments, are tested. But as for what we've done in power in Bristol, our commitment on housing has been clear. It's been groundbreaking. It's been record-breaking for Bristol, certainly over the last decades, and it's one that's not been backed by your party.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've had. I have a brief right of reply.
Councillor, you've had two questions and two follow-ups. Other people need to get in, I'm afraid. Thank you. We're going to move to Labour question 1, which is Councillor Massey. Councillor Massey, you also had two questions, so two follow-ups, please.
Thank you. And thank you for the response to my questions. In relation to the first one, and for the benefit of anybody who's not got it in front of them, it's all to do with dentists. Do you agree that it's appalling that in a civilised country, local people should have to organise donations of toothbrushes and toothpaste to give to school children in an attempt to improve their dental care due to a lack of NHS dentists in the area?
I do, and it's why our party has put the NHS as one of its top 5 national missions. And I know you'll know this, Brenda, that dental health is one of those kind of underappreciated indicators and drivers of general health of that person growing up. So making sure we have adequate and accessible and affordable dentist treatment, available to people of all ages within the city is absolutely essential.
Thank you. And my follow-up question is, I thank you for the work to get a dentist to remain in Southmead and the officers, and appreciate that refunding the arrears will be a matter for the finance team and will need to comply with the various regulations. But I do note the response only says consider, although I'm sure this is for a good reason. Do I have your personal support in discussions with the finance team in ensuring that this new lease is fair and pays off any debt from the previous owner, providing it complies with the regulations? I'm always
a little bit wary until I see the detail on the finances for committing to something, but you certainly have my support in pressing for adequate dental coverage. Just to let you know, we do actually have a meeting with the ICB next week to talk about dentist recovery over the city. Just while I have the floor on that point, Brenda, if I can just take the opportunity just to share something as well, going back to that last point on housing delivery. And it's just something for us to consider, that some of the opposition to housing delivery has been wrapped up in environmentalism. Some of it has been based on the idea that we're going to bring too much pressure on NHS services. But I would just add into that conversation that a lack of housing brings pressure to NHS services. Because a good quality, affordable home in a balanced community in the right location is one of the single most significant health interventions we can make. And it was a GP I heard interviewed only a couple of months ago said that actually what he would like to prescribe for a number of the people coming through into his surgery is a warm home. Right? A stable home, one they could afford. And so we need to work carefully with the ICB as it is now to make sure that as we deliver homes, we're getting the services in place, but also take account of the fact that the homes we are delivering themselves are a health intervention and will reduce demand on NHS services.
Okay, thank you very much. We move then to the first Conservative question, Councillor Eddy on Yew Tree Farm. Again, you have two follow-ups, please.
Mayor, legal and planning officers have played Pontius Pilate in claiming they are unable to take action because the recent hedgerow attack was governed by Section 5 of the Hedgerow Regulations 97. In fact, the offending application was made under Section 6(1)(c). Will he request, not instruct, the Chief Planner to take appropriate action, please?
Well, I mean, again, you'll know I have to be very careful and with the planning officers who are running a legal process. We're under the law. UG Farm are under the law. Developers are under the law. And by extension, everyone has the law at their disposal to pursue their interests as well, as long as they operate within the law. We've been clear on our view of the mistake that was made. That had consequences that are now somewhat out of reach to us. What I will do is make sure that our officers are doing their level best to deliver on our agenda, which is built around, obviously, with our ecological strategy and our delivery of the Sustainable Development Goals, to protect nature in line with the law and the situation we find ourselves in currently now under law.
My supplementary to my second question is, and it's really reflecting the fact the Mayor, bizarrely, doesn't seem to have answered my question, so I'll repeat. What action has he taken to personally commit to the steps to support the Elm Tree Farm campaign?
Well, as I said, I mean, I made my views on the decision that was made very clear at the time, and I won't ask representative employees of Bristol City Council to act in any way that's not under the law, but acting in line with the powers we do have and the restrictions that are around us. You know, what we require them to do is to deliver on the agenda that we have for Bristol, which is certainly on UG Farm, is summed up in the ecological strategy that we published for the city of Bristol. I think not answering your question, maybe not be giving you the answer you actually want, but it's the answer that we need to give for all of our interests.
Okay, we're moving on to Lib Dem questions. I have agreed to a request to change the order of these. So we're going to take first Councillor Kent's question, which was Lib Dem question 2, but we're now moving it up to question 1. Councillor Kent, you have 2 follow-ups, please, on clean air zone and transport.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I've got to say, you did catch me out there. I didn't know I was going to be called straight away. I'd like to thank the Mayor for his answer. I just want to point out, actually, it's factually incorrect. It says that it's £27,000, it's £30,000. I think that might have been a recent change. So perhaps we could get something added to the minutes just to clarify that. I was wondering, is it possible, Mayor, that you could write to blue badge holders in the city to alert them that there has now been an extension to the financial aid in buying a new vehicle, so that they're aware of this? Blue badge holders are less social media savvy, and I think that would be a really good step.
I'll talk to the team about what we can do to make sure people are as informed as possible about everything to do with the clean air zone. There's been a huge communications drive about it from the very beginning. In fact, one thing that wasn't picked up on was before it was implemented, and we were raising the issue of how blunt an instrument the clean air zone was and the potential negative impacts it could have on low-income households, businesses, disabled people, and actually a hospital. We kind of did that alone. It would have been fantastic to have had some support from the Chamber when we were standing up against Therese Coffey at the time. That wasn't forthcoming. But now we've got what we've got, and we're doing our best to support people through the change in behaviours that the Clean Air Zone is designed to foster.
I appreciate the answer. It must be lonely at the top. Supplementary to my second question, regarding supported bus services. As I'm sure you're aware, South Whitchurch has no bus service. The Metro Mayor, Dan Norris, is introducing £8 million birthday buses, which of course no one in South Whitchurch can use because they have no bus service. Normally the bus changes happen in September. Is there a plan in place to ensure these new additional services will be in place for September, which of course requires 28 days notice to register with the Traffic Commissioner?
So our priority on the buses is for free transport for 16 to 25-year-olds in education and employment. That's what we've wanted, and that's what we'll continue to campaign for as well with our regional money. And the work at the Combined Authority will be, the work we managed to get through those committee sessions. What we do want is a bus service that meets the needs of our congested and our growing population, and we'll keep campaigning for that, and the results will come out of the combined authority meetings themselves. And when you have a constructive contribution to make, you'd be welcome to come along and make that to those very difficult challenges that we're facing. I'm sure you have lots to offer.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We move then to Knoll Community Party. Question 1 from Councillor Hopkins on community asset transfers. You have one follow-up, please, Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My apologies, Mayor, but I have a technical problem, so can't access the written answers. So I'm guessing on the follow-up. Can the Mayor therefore give a general assurance, because the questions have been overtaken by the motion later on, that full account will be taken of the full value that a scheme actually can give to a neighbourhood, rather than a narrow accounting model that's actually used at the moment?
So a couple of things. I was just trying to catch Lord Mayor, so correct me if I heard right. First off, it would be quite a technical process to work out the full social value, and happy to have officers share that with you. I might just add as well that sometimes getting the full value, the full social value from any scheme is not just captured in the asset transfer. It's actually having good quality, productive, cooperative relationships with members of the community as well. And when local representatives have very adversarial and domineering relationships, that can undermine that productivity because we lose that goodwill. So we try to be productive. We try to make sure that we deliver on all those fronts, and we'd welcome to share some of those practices with yourself.
Thank you. We move then to Green question number 2, which is Councillor Hathaway. I don't see Councillor Hathaway with us. No. So we'll go to Labour question 2 then, which is Councillor Pearce on City Leap and Clean Air Zone. You have 2 follow-ups, Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, my Lord Deputy. I don't know. Perhaps we can figure it out during a break. We're not even 1.5 rounds through the questions at Members' Forum. And I've uncovered with these questions a degree of wobbliness around what I would have thought would have been universally popular policies across the chamber on low carbon heat networks, on clean air zone, and actually, to an earlier question, on housing. Now, I would have thought all of those.
Councillor Pearce, is there a question coming at the end of this?
There is a question.
If it could come a little bit faster, please, that'd be nice.
Okay. I am only asking the one question though, so I'm saving you pounds. So, given this apparent wobbliness in support for the city's policies, can you please intercede with our partners and our citizens to assure them that the city does in fact remain committed, despite what opposition councillors may say with regard to those policies?
Councillor Pearce, I think you're very delicately referring to the heat networks coming to planning. Is that correct?
Yes, okay. That would, yes.
Okay, so we have sought to reassure some of our major partners and investors around our commitment. I mean, look, in summary, and I'm sure people know, one of the parties had 3 members on planning, 1 voted for, 1 abstained, and 1 voted against. So I think that was the thing that caused some consternation among some of our key city partners who were essential for the decarbonisation, of Bristol. But yeah, you can rest assured we've worked hard. I was at London Climate Week just a couple of weeks ago. Again, we had a number of cities asking about City Leap. A number of cities now taking steps to actively replicate City Leap. We did a session with the King, the lunchtime session, myself, Sadiq Khan, a bunch of other people, and the King. Again, obviously sharing off, the King, we would say that I was sharing our frustration with the absence of government leadership. Although we did meet in the morning with the civil servant who's leading on COP for the government. And what we have done is secured a monthly meeting of government, core cities, 3CI, and a number of the key institutions, financial institutions that are investing in decarbonisation across the UK and beyond in the lead up to COP, to make sure that by the time we get there, we've got a coherent UK position that is actually aligned around how we win the investment we need to retrofit homes, put EV charging points in, put heat networks in, and all the rest of it. So it did cause some consternation, but rest assured, work's been done since to make sure that people are still confident in our commitment to delivery.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. I'm assuming you don't want your second question. You're happy to move on.
No, I'm given great comfort from the Mayor's reply.
Thank you very much. In which case, we'll move to Conservative. Question 2, Councillor Gollop. On Clean Air Zone, Councillor Gollop, you have 2 follow-ups, please.
Thank you, Acting Lord Mayor. Thank Marvin for his answers. Now, I have to say, however, that for someone who seems to criticise the government at every given opportunity,
Greens.
Possibly the Greens more, but the government at most opportunities, to then claim and stand behind the government and say that they are responsible for this, I find slightly worrying, because I can't be the only councillor that has residents who are really struggling with the way the Clean Air Zone is being enforced. Let me give you an example. Residents who think they did not come into the zone but want to check, and there are areas where that is possible, and they can't. Now, is that a sensible way of running a system? And it doesn't really matter to me whether central government say you must run it that way or not. Surely you can have some influence, the authority can have some influence in improving that situation.
I think it's a bit of a flawed logic. There's no inconsistency between pointing out the bluntness of a government system that's handed down to us, and being involved in having to run it ourselves. And I have shared in the chamber before, whether it's registered or not, that during those months leading up to the launch of the Clean Air Zone, we were regularly pulled through the press, and actually it was very difficult for the opposition parties not to join in on that, even yourselves, accusing us of missing deadlines. What we were pointing out in this chamber at the time was that we were in negotiations with Therese Coffey, as it was at the time, and actually had a number of direct conversations with her myself, pointing out how blunt an instrument it was. Some people in the chamber were asking for city-wide clean air zones. Just get it done. Our point was, if you implement it too quickly, without looking at the potential negative consequences for some people, you will, by definition, have negative consequences for some people and have a backlash. Now, we tried to approach it with some nuance. As Tim said, it was lonely, but not to the point of having a hanky out, Tim. But it is the case that you're able to run and hide under the covers while we take the actual decisions to make stuff happen. We have pointed out it's a blunt instrument several times. It was going to have negative consequences. That's why we negotiated a £42 million package and have subsequently got another £11 million worth of mitigations for people in Bristol, because it's a problematic system. My conversations with the minister at the time were pointing this out. Her response, as you might imagine from seeing her on TV, was pretty blunt. Get on with it, right? There was no scope for having any nuance in the way we approach the Clean Air Zone, and we're left to get on with it and work with a system that we've always warned would be very blunt and problematic.
Supplementary to answer 2, we are going to hear later this evening about the administration's commitment to equality and inclusion. I find it extraordinary that there is no attempt made to deal with those who are digitally excluded in paying for the Clean Air Zone, and that there is no attempt, it appears from what my residents are saying, for elderly residents who are not familiar with all the processes to be able to find alternative ways. Would you consider looking at providing those alternatives more clearly so that they can identify how to deal with payment?
So first off, anything we can do to feed into this system to make it more accessible, fairer, less blunt, landing on people's shoulders, we will do. Again, that's why we negotiated hard at our own political cost, because when we were, as I said, when we were demonstrating with government about rolling down the legal responsibility onto the shoulders of local authorities, we were taking the hits weekly. People questioning our commitment to clean air, saying we didn't care about people breathing dirty air and so forth. But what we were doing is we were trying to anticipate these unintended consequences of a legal, a national legal requirement. I say it's a moral responsibility to deliver compliant air. We're looking at the legal side as well. So we will share your ideas, and we'll definitely take them on and feed them back. Just what I would say for future such situations as this, it would be good to contribute these sorts of concerns before the scheme was implemented. There was quite a long lead-in time. We worked hard as an administration to anticipate all the unintended consequences, and it would have been fantastic to have had the intelligence that you would have from your communities fed into that system. It would have been fantastic to have had your support in reaching out to your minister as well to make sure she understood that it's not good enough just to go in the paper and accuse us for dragging our feet, but actually that we were trying to be very considerate about the people that could have been adversely impacted by a scheme that has a good goal and it has a good outcome in giving us compliant air, but there are some people who could be disproportionately impacted by it. So turning up after the fight is great, but it'd be great to actually implement into our debate before the decision was made. But that's for the future. But yeah, send your ideas in. We're happy to feed them in.
Okay, we move on to Liberal Democrat question 2. And again, the order of these having changed, that is now Councillor Brown's question that was published as number 3 on South Bristol bus corridors. Councillor Brown, it was one question, so one follow-up, please.
In a bit of light relief from what's gone before, I'd like to thank the Mayor for his question, which I think will go some ways to reassuring the constituent whose query instigated this particular question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move then on to Green question 3, which is Councillor Stafford Townsend on trans rights. It was one question, so one follow-up, please.
Lovely, thank you very much. So first off, thank you very much for running the consultation in the first place. I note in your response it says that the majority of responses were against the policy. That's something that we did notice and query at the beginning of the consultation because there was no postcoding to it, so it was open to not just Bristol residents, it was in theory open to the entire world. And so we were told that, and I quote, that the majority view is not necessarily one that will shape the final proposals, and that we won't be able to infer the level of support for the proposals among the general public from the survey results as a whole. So I want to remind you that we've got 2 trans non-binary members of this chamber, and gender reassignment is a protected characteristic. Every public forum that we've had for a year since we passed the trans right motion July last year has included transphobic statements and people, including people yelling about penises, one of whom used to be the monitoring officer of this council. Outside the budget full council, these people were picketing outside, and I was prevented from getting into my place of work to represent the people that I've been elected to serve by people calling into question my gender. And so like today, we've got an item on full council that's stating our commitment to equality.
Councillor, can I ask you to move to a question, please?
Sure, okay. Well, basically, we've been banned from Pride for not doing enough on transphobia. Every time these people come and they speak to us and they shout about penises and they say transphobic comments, I have to walk out. That's the only respite I have from it, as does my colleague. There are trans and non-binary members of this council, of our city. How do we tell them that they are safe when we can't stop and protect our own council members in this chamber? So why aren't you actually standing up to the equalities and diversity that you claim to have and actually introducing this trans inclusion document?
I'm going to respond on behalf of the Mayor because I'm the one who actually initiated the trans policy in the first place. And so the point is we will be ensuring, I made clear when we first initiated the need for a trans policy, I don't care if we only have one member of staff or a member of the council who is trans, but there are obviously people who live in this city who are trans, and so we need to make sure that as an authority we protect those who work for us and those whose services we deliver. We want equity. I want to see equity right across the board, regardless of the kind of binary choices and views that people have in this city. Everyone has a right to be treated equally.
Thank you. I hope it gets introduced soon.
Thank you. Where are we? On to Labour question number 3, please, which is Councillor Jackson on parks, tennis and pavement parking. You have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thanks for your answer, Marvin, and I do hope Redcatch join as well. But at the moment, I understand there's a lot of misleading information going around the community about this. Is there anything we can do to help to put a stop to that, please?
Well, I do think some issues have been raised with the council, and we'll back the processes we have to make sure that people found to be sharing misleading information are accountable. I think we'll support the community who are trying to put out more accurate information about what's going on, to make sure that they have our cover, and our support. But it is, our responsibility. I know the temptation in party politics is always to share, a partial truth and to put a bend on it to create the binary world and get a tweet or a headline out of it. But it is really important for the sake of the city that this chamber is in the business of having debate that is flavoured by accuracy, nuance, and making sure we're being honest about the difficult decisions we have to make. And I would say solutions and delivery focused as well. But we'll support the process that we have in council to make sure that we are sharing accurate information with, for, and about those communities we work with.
Thank you. Can I supplementary?
Yeah, your second question, please do, yeah.
Thanks for the answer of that, which is exactly what I thought it would be. But is there anything we can do to write to government to give us more, so we can introduce more powers for us to be able to act on pavement parking? I don't know if Don knows it.
Don.
We did respond to a DFT consultation in 2019, and Councillor Dudd held this portfolio. The consultation results have never been issued by the DFT, and I've written to them and I didn't get a reply.
Can I just come back to that? So is there any chance of us writing again, please?
Well, you can ask, but you've had your 2 questions. I'm sure Don will answer that to you privately. Right, moving on then. Conservative question 3 is Councillor Hucker on highways maintenance and potholes. You have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you. Thank you for your response, Marvin. It was quite informative. I welcome the fact that there appears to be more flexibility on this than I was originally given to believe. So I'll take this up again with the officers that I've been dealing with on it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. And we move then to Green question 4, which is Councillor Fodor on parks and streets funding. You have 2 follow-ups.
Thanks very much, Chair or Deputy Lord Mayor. So I'm quite concerned. The Mayor is either confused or trying to mislead in his reply. I brought a budget amendment to this chamber. The council approved it. The Mayor agreed to put it in his budget. That was then passed by this chamber. I couldn't vote for it because of some of the cuts to things like council tax reduction scheme. But it was the approved budget with my amendment in it. The Mayor says I'm factually inaccurate to say there was a green budget amendment. My question is about the amendment that was passed by this chamber. I think he owes the chamber response to acknowledge this is the budget amendment that was passed.
I mean, I don't think it's I don't think it's good political strategy for the Greens to go back to a budget again that you abstained on, having got this is just an abdication of responsibility. And I think there were communities right across the city, as well as party colleagues. At least some parties had the courage to vote against it, rather than what would you call it? Aggressive moralism or some such like that. When we have a legal responsibility to bring a budget within our financial envelope. So I mean, you can go on about it, but there's nothing in the current budget that you can claim to have taken any credit for, because you haven't supported the budget, and that's been a repeated pattern throughout the years. I think so keen to please people that seem to be afraid to actually make a decision. So that I mean, things will need to change because for you guys, but no, we stand by that. It's a real shame.
Chair, the Mayor still hasn't answered my first question. I fell into that to an answer to the first question before we moved to the second. I asked for a progress report on the budget amendment. He hasn't given it. He's said that his
Councillor,
budget somehow
you've asked your follow-up question. The Mayor has answered it. He has to give you an answer. He doesn't have to give you an answer that you like. You can now ask your second follow-up question, please.
Yeah, it's disappointing he's frightened of answering the actual question. But the second point was actually to point... it said Councillor King will get round to dealing with the budget amendment sum that I got put in the budget when there are resources. It was a capital sum. Capital sums can include the cost of implementation. So I don't know why it has to wait in a queue before it does get implemented. Some of the capital from the strategic seal can be used to implement the improvements to streets and parks which this chamber voted for.
One of the points I've been sharing nationally, and it's one that's been supported by all local government leaders, and I was at the LGA conference last week, is that one of the hidden costs of austerity is our backroom capacity. It's easy to come and protest about the things we see. There's a phrase that floats around in the chamber and in the press, right? Much loved. Save the much loved. But actually, no one comes and campaigns for lawyers, project managers, accountants. These are the positions that keep the cogs of local government in any place moving. And these are the positions that have been hollowed out. What that also means is that you have to prioritise on what projects come first. Cannot deliver 1,001 projects on day one. And there are some real pressing capital priorities in Bristol, and we have to put them in sequence because we have finite resources and finite capacity. Now, there is a version of the world that appears on leaflets in which everyone can have everything they want all at once. Unfortunately, in a position of leadership, I don't occupy that world. And so we do work with an organisation that has to prioritise. And it'll be, well, that's the reality of it. And at some point, if you ever occupy a position of leadership, you'll also start to grapple with that unfortunate reality.
Thank you. We move on then to Labour question 4, which was Councillor Bradshaw, who I don't think is with us. So we'll move to Conservative question 4, Councillor Weston on Bristol Waste. You have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you very much, Acting Lord Mayor. We'll come up with a better term.
I think just chair is fine.
Chair, fair enough, thank you. Well, considering the chair, surely it'd be like the Voldemort throne. I mean, it is a rather ornate, anyway, seating arrangement. Thank you. Question to the Mayor via the Lord Voldemort Mayor. There are genuine concerns surrounding... I can get away with it because he's... Yeah, hi. There are genuine concerns surrounding the manner in which the managerial change has been needed at the waste company, the staff suspensions, conditions in the company, the way it's been running, etc. I accept the points the Mayor's made, but does he not agree that actually, I think people want to know what's gone on and what is going on, and that an inquiry, which then updates councillors as to the conditions there, is the best way forward?
No, I think people want their bins collected and their streets cleaned. This is.
I suspect you're also right there.
Yes, and that's what people. I don't necessarily think people need to know the machinations of what's going on. We work hard to make sure that this organisation and the companies that we are the shareholders in work well and treat their staff well. That's a priority for us. But in terms of the wider city, what we need to do is make sure that we're delivering those basic services.
Okay. On the delivery of basic services, then. I understand a revised offer has been made. We find out tomorrow whether that's accepted, I think. looking at more unionised colleagues to give me perspective on that one. Can I ask where the money for that has come from?
Yeah, you wouldn't expect me to comment in the chamber on negotiations at this moment in time. We want to be an excellent employer. We want this organisation to give people a fantastic platform for life. Hence, we became a living wage employer and have, pursued living wage status for the city as a whole. We want our workforce and anyone working with us to be in a position where they can offer an excellent service to the people of Bristol. The details of the negotiations that are going on are for the negotiators around the table.
Thank you. That brings us to Green question 5 then, which is Councillor McAllister on bins. You have 2 follow-ups.
Well, thank you very much. So over the last couple of months, the improving weather, though you wouldn't know it from today, has brought many people out onto the streets of Bristol, especially to the more open and touristy areas like the harbour side. While we all welcome the positives of this, the negatives such as overflowing bins and littered streets have become rather normal across large parts of the centre and the harbour side, resulting in all the negatives that those entail. Dealing with this problem would be good for the environment and good for the economy. So can the administration please commit to liaising with Bristol Waste to install more bins in high traffic and tourist areas, please, and providing the regular collections they'll require?
Well, we've done that, and I'm sure you did your research before getting elected. The work we've done on clean streets in Bristol. Only last week I was up in Lockleys, having us put some cameras up, trained on particular fly tipping spots as well. We've had Kurt James working on our Clean Streets campaign all around the city. We introduced fines as well for people who were found to be dropping litter. We rolled out bins. You'll see them at the front. The solar bins as well that send a message when they are full. And so a considerable amount of time, effort and money has been put into cleaning up Bristol, over the time. But there's a couple of things I think it's worth saying. There's a fundamental truth as well that while we'll do everything we can, it's expensive to do it. So making an ask is great. Making an ask and telling us where the money comes from is better, particularly as elected member. Getting your head around the fact that we have finite resources. I think too, it's also worth the challenge to the city as well. That if we want a clean city, it cannot be done by Bristol City Council picking up the rubbish alone. We have to treat the city differently. And not having a bin to hand is not a legitimate excuse for putting rubbish on the floor. That's just not, and we can't excuse that. So what we could do, what some help from you, is also helping us run the campaign for that culture change in the city to make sure people treat their city differently, take their waste home, or wait till they do actually see a bin.
Well, thank you. I'd be delighted to get involved in such a campaign, and you know where to find me. Just a quick follow-up to that one. I was wondering what specific measures might be being taken in preparation for the Harbour Festival and the expected corresponding increase in rubbish, as sadly people don't always pick up after themselves.
Well, it's the same as most years. Special teams are put on. There'll be overnight cleanups in the aftermath, of the festival. That comes against a wider backdrop of work over the last few years, in which more bins have been put out. There's been an overhaul of the way street cleansing works to work on a more village basis as well. And there have been campaigns, and you'll see if you go on the bins out on College Green, you'll see the evidence of the campaigns that have been put in place to make sure that people are treating Bristol differently. But again, use your own platforms. You're a man of Twitter, I understand. Yeah.
So people tell me. Yes.
All right. Well, I think the collection of you are your Twitter people. So use your power of your collective presence on Twitter to bring about that revolution in the way we treat the city. That would be much welcome. Okay.
Thank you. So for my second question,
Thank you. You've asked two, you had 2 questions. You've asked two follow-ups.
Was the first not supplementary for the first? Was the second? Not?
You get 2. You've got 2 published questions. That means you're entitled to ask 2 supplementary questions, which you've done. Right. That moves us to Labour question 5. Is Councillor Bales? I don't think she's with us. So Conservative question 5. Councillor Courtley on Tourist Information Centre, and you have 1 follow-up.
Okay, yeah, I thank the Mayor for the response, but no supplementaries.
Okay, then thank you very much. Then we move to Green question 6, Councillor Wilcox on Muller Road developments, and you have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your answer, Maryse, about the Muller Road depot question. My supplementary is, can the Mayor ensure that the disruption related to the installation of these drainage connections be kept to a minimum, please? Local residents have been plagued by the Muller Road Phase 1 works overrunning from February to an expected completion date of August, and more works on that area will not go down very well.
Yeah, we'll endeavour to ensure that any disruption to anyone's lives is kept to a minimum. But I'm not going to pretend that whenever we're involved in any kind of construction activity, it's going to have an impact on the city. But as I said, yeah, we'll try and keep those disruptions to a minimum. But hopefully people will see that the prize is worth the price when we have the homes, the bus lanes, and the heat networks put in across Bristol.
Thank you, Mayor. And I have a supplemental to my second question. Will the Cabinet member be asking the local and surrounding councillors to contribute to the full business case, as they are best placed to represent the needs of the concerns of the local residents?
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity to input will be there. There are lots of people who are well placed to represent communities as well. There's been a challenge to the council in the past, but I'm sure your contributions will be incredibly valuable and most welcome.
Thank you. I look forward to that.
Thank you. So we move on then to Conservative question 6, Councillor Galandris, on safeguarding sites of nature conservation interest. We have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you very much, Marvin, for the answers. They're very helpful. I have no supplementaries.
Okay, thank you. Then Green question 7, Councillor Townsend, I think he's not with us. Conservative question 7 is Councillor Morris. No. And Conservative question 8, Councillor Alexander, on the tip taxes. Do you have any follow-up questions there? No further questions. Okay, in which case that concludes member forum questions, and we do have some time. So we have 2 statements to take. The first of those is Councillor Stafford Townsend, who was with us but isn't. And finally, Councillor Makawi on support for Sudan. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. On behalf of myself and my Sudanese community in Bristol, and those coming from the war zone in Sudan, we extend our thanks to and gratitude to the Bristol City Council for the facilities they provide to those who were evacuated from the war zone in Sudan, the citizens who hold British nationalities, women, men, and children. Our thanks in particular to all the departments of the Council concerning the housing, education, and health, as well to the administration, which is represented by the Mayor of the city and the member and the cabinet, and to the Lord Mayor and Mayor Rees for attending the fundraising event held for those affected by the war in Sudan. All of these had the greatest impact on the heart of the member of the Sudanese community. I hope that Mayor Rees and my fellow councillor will continue their effort to convey the voice of the community to the government, and the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and the Home Secretary Suella Braverman. We should treat the family and relative of those who have been evacuated like their peers from Ukraine by facilitating procedures for the arrival of their family so they can be reunion with each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that statement. That concludes member forum. So we will reconvene for full council at 6 o'clock. Thank you.